mention, when I'm talking about the National Conference of Artists, the branch that's in New York City, to mention that the president of the national at one time was Kwame Brath, the brother of Ilombe Brath. And then to turn around, and of course the presidents, we had fabulous presidents that led us to Africa at different times, Bing Davis, John Lockhart, and
Artists, outstanding
yes,
artists.
and we also an Ethiopian from the South, North Carolina. But when it comes to New York City, remember that we had Ed Sherman. He was the glue to keeping the organization together, because there was a contingent around Danny Simmons, the brother of Russell Simmons, who had Rush Art Gallery, and also Brenda Green, who ran the literary department at Medgar Evers College. But the credit goes to Ed Sherman, who is a photographer. And in his being a photographer, he had done a full exhibition of the works of Roy DeCarava. And he's done other organizing curatorial work at Kinkebula, working with the family of Thelonious Monk, where he had me to do some lectures in reference to music and art. And then certainly with Elizabeth Catlett was a big thing. But we've done a lot of things. The Schomburg and Leonard mentioned the City College first early exhibit of the local NCA that was not so local because we were so entrenched in yearly conferences at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But then I mentioned we had Ed Spriggs in Harlem, and so that was very important with the National Conference of Artists. But talking about the classism, we should go to Leonard and, hear something about Clark House and Adelaide Sanford.
But classism, that shouldn't confuse anybody. We're talking about organization of our community in its various institutions. And so what Rosiland was trying to say, that individuals, by their egos, were able to achieve, because we're on a mission impossible, coming from the degradation of what has happened to Africans through enslavement and discrimination, etc., and the confusion that has resulted. One of our great scholars said it best, Dr. Wade Nobles: African people everywhere suffer greatly from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity.
And the young rappers must be understood in light of the transition over the generations.
Right, there's transformation that's going on through our
college
community.
Students.
And history needs to be
and
clarified.
Grassroots.
History that we learn is his story. The story of rich white men with property and power, or rich white organizations and institutions with power, the white church or the white cultures out of Greece and Rome. But we have redefined history to be not his story, but history is the unfolding of people on planet Earth in this universe. And so what our great contribution has been over these last 100 years is to put that history in the hands of the people, to help them socialize and acculturate into stronger human beings, to get rid of that inferiority complex, to form communities and organizations and institutions. And that's the story of the Dr. Clarks and the Dr. Ben and John Henry Clark. That's the story of our preachers. Adam Clayton Powell, a junior, or his father, senior, were not just extraordinary preachers. They believed that history should come alive. It should be institutionalized. It should sustain itself. It should be more than just an ego family affair. So we need to look at this history as the unfolding of the creation and the creator and the consciousness of divinity that's in all of us. So we organized around individuals who were aspirational and inspired us, but they told us to organize around communities and organizations. So we produced African Heritage Studies Association in 1968-69, when Dr. Clark flew us across the country to Los Angeles to challenge white folks. And out of that came an organization that's one of the premier organizations formed in the late 60s. But Rosiland was referencing the African artists, African-American artists, formed an organization in the 50s. So this need to be beyond yourself as an individual and involve your family and friends in your community is our legacy. Now people are tied up in their instrumentality. They're caught up in pressing the buttons and pushing this and pushing that. They are not working as families, their genetic families, or as community families. They're not working as institutions and organizations. We got this far more than by faith. We got this far by organizing.
That's right.
If you do not organize, you will not be able to deal with the society. The society is systemic and organized. You need organizations and systems to deal with it. That's what we learned from Dr. Ben. That's what we learned from Dr. Clark. That's what we learned from this brother, the shaping of Black America. He was able to put, this is Professor Lerone Bennett. He was able to take the works of the WPA that our great brother Aaron Douglas created, which shows the movement of history, the Nile Valley, the modernization, industry, etc.
That's Lerone Bennett.
This is the cover that Lerone Bennett took.
Yeah, one of the first books I read was Before the Mayflower by Lerone,
but he
which
went
was a
beyond
great,
the
which was
Before the Mayflower.
great book. Yeah.
That helped change my style of teaching. This completely changed it,
Did it?
because he's talking about systems, the system. He's talking about foundations. He's talking about the first founding fathers. He's talking about Black founding fathers. So this helped me when I started teaching at City College in 1969 to change my way of teaching. But Lerone, he talks about the struggles and triumph of African Americans 1619 to 1900s. And so we are now celebrating 1619. The president of Ghana flew from Ghana, Africa, to the U.S. to declare in Washington that we need to take this coming year as the year of the return to Africa. He's taken the arrival of Africans in Virginia in 1619 to say we need to look at 400 years of our enslavement and to show the achievements that we achieved during that period of time and to link it up. And so I'm saying that yes, we need to do that, and we will this year. That's why it's important for us to connect with you and others who can begin to spread this word. That this year coming up, 2019, is the year of the return. But to return to what? Not just to Ghana, but to return to Africa.
That's right.
Africanizing our lives, to African values, African traditions. African art is a part of that, African values, African institutions. So I want to get the president to go beyond just soliciting, coming to Ghana to visit, to invest, to live, if you will, to take citizenship. Let's take the most important part of the planet, the African continent and its extensions, and declare that this will be the decade of the return to Africa, the return to African consciousness, to return to Africa's understanding of what the creation is, to return to African understanding of what women are as a component of the human family, what nature is, what creativity is. So this is our 82nd year for Rosiland and I. We hope to pass in the hands of others a larger vision than creating something on this modern technology that you can make a few dollars on. You need to create it so that you can impact on the mind and heart of our people. And that's what will make the difference, because we're in the age of insanity, the Trumpian age. And that age has no boundaries, no limitations, no morality. So we need to return to Africanizing our lives in all the ways we can. Economics, politics, and culture, certainly in a systemic way, the way our brother Amos Wilson laid out in a blueprint for Black Power. We need a blueprint for Pan-Africanism. And what Ross was referring to in reference to the artists and the different schools that they come out in their relationship, that's Pan-Africanism. And what I'm trying to say with the institutions and organizations that Dr. Clark and them told us to build, that's Pan-Africanism. Dr. John Henry Clark House is named for his work, but the people who did it were Regent Adelaide Sanford, our Queen Mothers, who said we need to have a special place. And that same process that Queen Mother Adelaide Sanford did, which produced Clark House, across the river in New Jersey, Sister Queen Mother Frederica Bay said we need to organize the family around the kitchen, her kitchen table. The women got together, and then they involved the men, and then they went into educating our people, and so they produced the phenomena of what they call them, those schools, charter schools that we control. So what we're saying is, don't give up, don't stop. As Frederick Douglass said, and he said it best, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. As Steve Biko said it clearly before he was killed, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed.
That's right.
And what the Jeffries and the Dr. Benz and Clarks and all of our greats, the Asa Hilliards and Francis Curtis Wellesley, what we begin to understand is that the most potent weapon in the hands of the liberator is the mind of the oppressed. And our role is creating a Pan-African liberation movement that has us moving not individually, not as a group, not as a geographical entity, but as a people into a new level of human consciousness and contributing to the forward march of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to have at least this message out there as we begin our 55th year, and as we begin our 82 years of actual living on the planet. And we want to pass this on in the various ways we can to the future. And those who have the technological proficiency to put it on the internet and whatever, we certainly give them permission to do it. Final words, Dr. Rosiland. Her African stool name as a Queen Mother is Nana Abibio. My African stool name as a chief in the Akan tradition is Nana Kwekuchua Ajaman II. So if you see that Dr. Leonard Jeffries is quiet and Dr. Rosiland Jeffries seems to be quiet, but there's some hellraisers called Nana Abibio and a chief called Nana Kweku Jua II, you'll see that spirit and that force that came up out of the South and connected to Africa again is carrying on its work.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's our shade.
Power to our people.
Power to our people, brother. And all praise is due to the creator of the seen and unseen and known and unknown. And I'm just glad to have you all within our midst to have history come through your bodies in such an elegant form that even the most common people, as Malcolm said, make it plain. You can make it plain, but you can talk to the finest of academia and intelligentsia also.
And as you mentioned, make it plain.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a unifying figure outside of the Reverend James H. Robinson, who adopted Rosalind as a virtual daughter, adopted me as a virtual son, and then sent us to Africa on his program, Operation Crossroads Africa, then married us in 1964. He's a seminal figure in our coming together with our various friends and whatnot and movements. But there is an iconic figure beyond anyone else, and that's El Haj Malik El Shabazz. And so that's why I dragged out of our home, where we have an enormous legacy of important things, this image of a brother who transformed from a young child who had a blessed foundation in his family, to the destruction of the family, to transforming into a hoodlum in the hood, and then transforming while incarcerated into our black shining prince that Ruby Dee and others acknowledged once he gave his life in the struggle. So here we have Malcolm in May 1964, when he made a trip from Mecca to Cairo to North Africa down into West Africa. I was there at the time he was there, but I had a responsibility for 14 nations throughout West Africa. So I didn't have time to hobnob with Malcolm because I had work to do. But May 1964 is the year before he was eliminated and destroyed. He was destroyed in 1965. But he was born, his birth date is May the 19th. So he was in Ghana at that important birthday for him. Rosalind and I got married a few months after May 1964. We got married November the 29th, 1964. And then after his assassination, we went to Africa to build on the continent. And so this is part of that those treasures that we need to reclaim. He was looking for a way to bring people together and institutions and organizations and ideologies. He was looking for a Pan-African way. Unfortunately, in our ego, in our individualism, we are fighting each other over whether it's Kemet or whether it's Egypt or whether it's Nubia, whether it's Rastafari, or whether it's Black Powerism, whether it's now it's feminism, and now we got third whatever-ism. And so we have to find a way of bringing the collective family together, because in unity there's strength.
That's right. That's correct. That is definitely correct. Definitely correct. That's shame. And Dr. Rosiland, when I first heard you speak, I said up there, I reached in my bag. I said, let me see if she sounds just like somebody out of one of them old sisters out the Old Testament of the Bible, or the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and then she had me thinking about Queen Nzinga, and messed around there and thought about Yah Santi Wa, and she was everything wrapped up into one. That's when you did the libations at Nama one year for Kwanzaa that we was holding over there. Mm-hmm. And that was my first time not hearing you actually speak, but hearing you do those libations. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the most deepest experiences. That's when I said I have got to have her come and do the libations at one of our smaller parades, the Harlem Mother's Day Parade, and also the Harlem Fathers of Men Peace Day Parade, which you hope you can do this year. Mm-hmm. But you're such a miraculous sister. You two are definitely been a pair for 56 years. There's a lot of divine inspiration in that too. A lot of hard work, forgiving and forgetting, and making a commitment to stay with one another. Right. Understanding what your vows is to each other, right. And then going beyond the call of duty to make it happen. Because you did know within your instinct, if you got rid of each other, you ain't gonna find another second to be. She ain't gonna find another man to be like you. You ain't gonna find another woman to be like her. But your life right now proves that point.
Yes, part of that important cement that has kept us together is a mission in reference to Africa. Mm-hmm. And in that, you had a chance to even see everything differently. How you view the creation, how you view the Creator, how you view your deep personal relationships, how you view how you raise children. And so that Africanizing our lives, when I say that, it doesn't mean wearing this, doesn't mean having the jewelry or the kufi. It's values that are part of the divine order. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Jeffries, and I don't want to get too far off track, but in terms of that 56 years that you all been together, we have a spiritual brokenness within the community, but we have that healing factor, and that's overriding. I'm an optimist, definitely overriding. It's not something that's past tense, but it's present tense that we're healing ourselves on a constant level. This is part of that process. But in terms of relationships, if you can break up a family, you can break down the whole entire structure of the whole entire race. What is your, not just so much in terms of, we understand about the Afrocentricness of it, but what is it on the spiritual level and psychological level that will keep people together with some type of matrimony, whether it's two people, whether it's polygamy or whatever it is, but a dedication towards one another to strive towards a particular goal and objective together. What has been your secret, or maybe a couple tidbits, and this is going to be for further discussion. We need to speak about this. Because relationships, that's one way they have been able to keep us down, is by keeping us so divided among one another, as you both know. Is there anything that you can just give us briefly before we shut this off? I really, really would like for you to make some kind of comment about that.
Well, they say that the parent-child relationship is one where the children need to know that the parents are not necessarily your friends. Yeah. They are parents to discipline you for life and also to love you, yes, but to keep you on the right path. Mm. And sometimes learning can be very difficult. And so a bishop that I know said, God created marriages so that each could kill each other.
And then resurrect
and each time you get resurrected, you come to a better understanding and a higher spiritual level.
That's heavy. That's heavy. Well, I just want to say
Amen.
this. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Allahu Akbar. Hotep and show you right.
That's right.
And I just want to say, well, this has been just a joyful occasion of me sitting down here and talking to you two as always. But we want to we're going to continue to struggle and know that that the information that you give is put in good hands. You know, we will make all this manifest, just like the ones that came before you. You continuing on, and we're going to continue to struggle. But something that I found out that made me a little bit more calm. I understand that it's going to always be a struggle between left and right, hot and cold, black and white,
Right.
up and down. It's going to be the law of opposites. It's just about what side you want to be on. So we shouldn't be dismantled when we see the devil raise his ugly head in many, many different forms. It's up to us to be on the side that we on to fight against that, to tackle that, and slay that.
Yes.
And then that devil within ourselves to keep him at bay. I'll keep her at bay. But with all that said and done, I want to say thank you so much. And
We want to tell you, Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever. All right. Thank you so much. Wakanda.